Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tales Roadhouse. Good to be with you again today. So I got a good friend of mine in the house today, Jimmy Chandler. So Jimmy's
What's
a
up?
successful businessman. Him and his wife have a dance studio here in town, after school program. But what I wanted to talk with you about, we've known each other for several years, and you've been a singer, musician, very talented guy. You've been through the ranks, man. Played theaters, had a record deal out in California for a while. So I want to talk about your journey and hear about your perspective of the music business in this day and age. So let's just talk about music.
Absolutely. Well,
Jimmy Chandler.
yes,
Yay!
there are like 8 people ecstatic in and around Branson, Missouri, and maybe Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, that recognize me at this moment. Maybe 9. I don't know. I cut myself short.
Maybe 10, you know.
It could be.
9.5. There might be a little person out there somewhere that might recognize you from a Halloween party or
That's
something.
very true. That's very true. Yeah, I think. Well, again, thank you for having me. This was kind of a last minute thing, so I ran from my normal gig. Actually, left a bunch of kids at Chuck E. Cheese. They're supervised, But yeah, we got to come over here to a cool tour bus and do this thing. So I'm excited about it.
So you started off in Branson when you were a teenager. I guess not really started off, but that's one of the places, and I've heard this story quite a few times. What was the theater world like when you were a teenager, when you were doing stuff in Branson?
So
give me the rundown of a day in the life of. So Jim, what was the theater you played at?
So it was the Country Tonight show.
Okay.
We started. My parents bought my older sister a little karaoke machine, right? When I was about 9. My whole family sings. My dad, grandfather, his father, long line, and I just started singing on the karaoke machine. My mom went and got my dad. Was like, "This little dude's like killing it," like listen to him. They started introducing me, putting me in these little talent shows, and we went from it started at like the elementary school, and then we went to nightclubs. I'm from Houston, Texas, so it's not that strange to take a 9-year-old to a bar, believe it or not. I think it is now in 2025, but back in the 80s, or I guess early 90s, that was totally fine. So we would go. They would take me everywhere, anywhere I could sing, and got noticed by a local producer there who I believe produced like Clint Black, Mark Chestnut, all those Beaumont boys down in that area. It just kind of progressed, and at 9, I signed a contract in Las Vegas with Country Tonight and started at the old Aladdin Theater out there. And I'll tell you, coming from small town life in Southeast Texas to going and being in a Las Vegas show for a young man was very strange.
So at 9 years old, were you in more of kind of a group setting with a house band kind of thing? What were you? What was?
No, so it was literally just back in those days. You would have tapes, like karaoke tapes, and so I would do these talent show things and do these I would just show up, or I would set in with a house band or whatever and sing. Now, when I went to Vegas, I auditioned for them. I got that deal. And of course, at that time it was like a 45-member cast. It was a really big production. But you imagine 10 or 11 years old at this time. There's dancers running around doing quick changes, and out there in Vegas, they had made other changes and you're seeing that as a 10 or 11-year-old boy going, "I think I like this music thing." Sorry, Mom, but it's true. I think she knew that. And then that progressed, they opened up a theater in Branson, Missouri. A friend of mine was there in that show, so they kind of moved me out there, and then they opened up another one out here in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Gatlinburg area. And I went out and opened up that show. By this time, I'm 16, I think. We moved to Nashville, my mom and my dad and I, and my girlfriend, who I'd met in the show, we started dating at 15, still married today. What is that? We've been together over 27 years, so that's kind of wild.
Yeah.
She was also a musician. She got signed to Atlantic Records, which I believe you were on Atlantic Records at the same time. So we bumped into this guy here or there, but didn't know him, obviously at the time. And then Goodness, there's a lot from there. So I guess we can let's unpack that for now.
So, doing the Branson, the Pigeon Forge Gatlinburg
Yep.
thing. What's a lot of people don't realize that's a pretty grueling schedule. You're working like 6 days a week, 2 shows a day. You know, that's a pretty heavy load for a young kid. I mean, it's easier to do when you're young because you're pretty much
Absolutely.
on all the time. But that's a lot.
So we had, I guess for the band, it would have been a lot more difficult. For me, I was what was known as a featured performer.
So y'all, was it Jim Stafford? Y'all did a lot of stuff with Stafford.
I
too,
did a
didn't
lot.
you?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff with them. I became friends with so many of those guys. I mean, I knew Mickey Gilley from being from Pasadena, Texas, obviously home of Gilley's. I'd performed with Jerry Lee Lewis when I was a kid. I remember sitting on his piano bench at the Woodlands while he played Great Balls of Fire because he had heard me sing Great Balls of Fire. And my mom said that she looked to my dad and said, are we sure that little Jimmy's safe up there with Jerry?
He's been known to set stuff on fire.
Yeah, and maybe kill some. I don't know. I'm not throwing rumors out there, but that you haven't already heard. But so yeah, there was. I mean, it was a strange childhood. But getting back, I guess, to your actual question, it was fantastic for me because maybe my first performance was 25, 30 minutes into the show. I'd go out and perform 2 numbers. I'd come back. We did like a gospel kind of segment right before the intermission because there were a lot of older folks that came to the show. So we would have intermissions in the shows because they'd need a bathroom break and go to the snack bar.
Before Depends.
That's right. And then I'd come out and do another like feature in the second half before Depends. I got that now. Sorry. Phew, right over the head. And then we would kind of close the show. So my stage time might have been 20 minutes. Twice a day, so 40 minutes total. And the rest of the time, it was the days of PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64. I'm just sitting back there killing it on GoldenEye or, whatever else.
Were you homeschool kid? I mean,
I was homeschooled. Once all this began, by the time I was 10 or 11, really like after 6th grade, I never went back to public school. It started getting a little weird, just I was gone all the time, and the school was really great about it. Queens Intermediate, shout out. They were super cool about it, but it got to a point where I was messing too much, so we went to homeschool. And my mom knows about this now, so I can share it to the world. But I guess technically I have a 6th grade education because I was a pretty smart, crafty kid. And I found where my mom hid the teacher handbooks for my homeschooling. So I would set an alarm like 12:30 in the morning, 1 in the morning, go find those handbooks, and I'd be like, correct, wrong, correct, wrong, got to make it look legit. And I did that for a while until, 15 or 16, one of my now wife's old teacher said, you should just go get your GED because it's going to be just as accepted as, a homeschool diploma was at the time. And so we went and did that, and I finished that in like the unbelievably short amount of time and was saddened.
What year frame was this? Was this?
This was right when I came to Nashville, so this was 16, which would have been like 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Late 90s, early 2000s in that area.
Yes.
How different was the whole theater scene to what you see going on in Nashville these days? I mean, this nightclub thing is completely different than that theater where a lot of older people, much more structured. The nightlife thing is a completely different thing. When did you transition into that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a bubble. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that term's used.
It's probably a healthy place for a young teenager.
Super
very
healthy.
contained.
And on top of all of that, I was around all of these seasoned musicians, guys that had been on the road with Merle Haggard, Loretta Lynn, at that time, and had kind of, once those artists had really gotten off of the road, it was a nice place for them to go and kind of settle into their musical retirement, if you will. But I was able to just learn from those guys so many things and just get schooled on so many different types of music. And we had talked about Todd Woolsey, who played guitar for you, taught me. I came to him at 12 years old in Branson, said, "Hey, I want to play guitar." He goes, "Let's do it. Just show up with a song and we'll start working." And I showed up with Stevie Ray Vaughan's "Mary Had a Little Lamb." That was the first thing I wanted to tackle. And he laughed at me, and we started on Stevie Ray Vaughan's "Mary Had a Little Lamb."
So we've talked about Todd Woolsey before. No. Okay, it's Todd Woolsey, Canadian boy. He did play
That's
in my
right.
band for a little bit. That's right. Okay.
Victoria,
Yeah.
British Columbia.
Yes. Yep.
Yep, that was my guitar teacher, and he was very patient and very great, and I still remember the things he taught me today. Unfortunately, I never turned into a tenth of as good of a player as Todd was, but I learned enough to get by.
Wow.
Yeah.
So several years of that, and then you made a transition. When did you move out to LA?
So came to Nashville when we were 16. Like I'd mentioned, my now wife signed a record deal. I was still kind of doing the country music thing with Full Circle Music Group, J. Gary Smith, David Malloy. They were, I never really worked with David. I was working with J. Gary, but I know they were bringing up artists like, I think Kevin Sharp at the time.
Yep.
They had just released Mindy McCready. Andy Griggs was one of one of the things happening there. And, we kept doing country, but it just kept lending itself more pop, the more and more as I aged, Initially, I talked to you about this before, but we were in talks with James Stroud, thanks to Clay Walker back in, I guess I was 12 or 13. But my voice was changing, and it was super weird. And the whole plan was, well, let's wait and kind of let your voice change, right? So we did that, and then we moved to Nashville. But once the voice changed, the style started to change. Not just my style, but the style of country music. And I was going further to the right or left, whichever way you would want to say. But then I started doing rock music at about 18 or 19 years old. First time I moved to LA was 18. Long distance relationship with the now wife. I signed with Bob Marcucci, who's passed away now, God rest his soul. But he was known as the Idol Maker. He signed Fabian back in the 50s and Frankie Avalon, if you remember all those guys. And they actually made a movie about him, a cult classic called The Idol Maker, which is kind of interesting. But an old Italian guy who knew everybody, and he was putting pieces together for me. But that venture just didn't work because he wanted to put me with, it's kind of like some of these NFL coaches that whenever they take a job, they want to bring all their buddies on. So Bob wanted me to work with all his buddies, and they were all 90 years old and just not really hip as to what was going on, and difficult to work with a 17, 18-year-old kid. So I came back from, I told my parents, I was like, look, y'all go back home to Texas. Your work here is done. I'm going to go to Nashville. I'm going to figure things out. So I moved back to Nashville around my then girlfriend. And we started a business together. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going full on rock and roll. I wanted to do it from the beginning, and formed a band called the Beauty School Dropouts here with my good friend Josh Baker and Jeremy McNeil. And eventually found our bass player all the way from England. His dad was a producer, and he was a decent bass player. Yes, decent, like semi-decent. No, he was really great. We just give him a hard time because that's what you do for bass players, right?
Better than Nikki Sixx?
Always.
I think he's better than Nikki Sixx, and I think they should fight it out. After Nikki hears this podcast, I know when he sees Jimmy Chandler's on Tracy's podcast, you're like, we got to watch this. And then things kind of took off from there. And life was strange. Life is strange, but we had an attorney that I know some of your associates now work with. Kent Marcus came to see us. Hope you don't mind me dropping your name, Kent. That's what I do, bro. He came to see us at the Gibson showcase. I don't know if you remember that, but it was at the Opry Mills Mall.
There's a barbecue joint there now.
That's right.
They used to actually build guitars there. That was a guitar shop. Yeah.
So let me go back just a hair. We put out a 6-song EP that we did all on our own. I had a recording studio at the time. And
okay, so name of the album, and that way people, because it's still out there.
I think it is.
We were looking it up a while ago before you came, because I was showing them some old pictures of you, man, when you had the jet black hair and the long stuff.
Yeah, I looked like a weirdo.
On stage with no clothes on and stuff.
Yeah, but Beauty School Dropouts, you got to do that. And I don't know if you guys made the connection, but I think the next logical question would be Beauty School Dropouts, where'd that come from? Well, my guitar player and I, and creative partner Josh, we still get into arguments about this, but I think it was kind of I think both versions are kind of true. But there was a font called Beauty School Dropout, when we were looking for our original name was Axiom, which means I think sounds rock and roll, like sounds like something Metallica would. Axiom. Yeah. But Axiom means like self-evident without need to be proven, right? So I was like, what a cool name and cool meaning. But we thought that was kind of butt rock, I think, later on. That's a term. You can look it up, butt rock. I don't know if there's butt country, but there's definitely butt rock. You don't fall into those categories. So we saw this font, Beauty School Dropout. We were trying to work on a logo, and it reminded me of Frankie Avalon, who the idol maker that I worked with back in the day.
Now, wasn't there a Beauty School Dropout something in Greece that was one?
Yeah, so Beauty School Dropout. That was Frankie Avalon sang that. So again, my old manager, Frankie Avalon, made the connection. It all kind of intertwined, and
come into focus
it worked well. So we did a 6-song EP all on our own. We did it for like $300, and I think the $300 was just to pay this guy. I wish I could recall his name, but to master it. And $300 to master 6 songs is not a lot. Like we had to pull a lot of favors to get that done. It ended up sounding pretty damn good. Sorry, dang good. And so we released that. Jason Flom from Lava Atlantic signed Matchbox 20, Kid Rock, like all those were his cats. He got it through a friend of mine, Johnny Scalione, and he sent Kent Marcus to come see us at the Gibson Showcase, which was like the second show we ever played. And there was like 9 people there to see us. So you notice the attorney sitting in the back, right? And he comes up and talks. He said, somebody sent me here to see you guys. You know, I just want to get some contact info. I'll be reaching out pretty soon. And 3 days later, or the next day, he reaches out and says, Flom's going to fly in to see you. We need to go ahead and rent SIR. And you know, so we started the showcase thing like a few months into being a band.
Wow.
And then a lot of things happened with Lava Atlantic. A lot of things were happening with the record labels at that time, which is kind of, you know, you've asked me all the time, like, do you miss it? And the answer is yes, but it was also just a timing thing, and I think it was meant to be that way. At least that's what I'm telling myself now. But we went on to have a lot of successes. My guitar player Josh has written tons of rock songs that you guys would probably know now, and our drummer is down in Atlanta, and he's super successful. And I think my bass player is in Alaska now, and he's like driving trains. So it's weird what life has done, but here we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of people may not understand when you talk about doing showcases.
Okay.
And I went through the same process. I don't know if it's the exact same now as what it used to be. I guess they still do some showcases, but getting a label to look at you is different now than what it used to be.
Correct.
I mean, it used to be kind of an underground vibe. Somebody heard something, somebody sent a demo tape in. Nowadays, if you don't have 1 million followers, they're not even going to.
That's exactly
you don't
right.
even get in the door. But showcases back in the day, you would kind of get some leverage. You'd try to set up everything with your band. You work up a small set, and then you'd invite several labels in,
Correct.
attorneys and different things, so people could come see you. And sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
And it's
Sometimes
a very-
people do multiple showcases before they get anything.
Oh,
going.
we probably did 15. I mean, and it was all timing. But to go back on what you said, I was explaining this to my kids the other day, just a matter of fact, but showcases are such a stale, strange environment, especially when they're not done in a live club
because
setting.
you're playing, especially if you're used to playing in front of people
That's
that are
right.
fans, the energy that you get from them is like so
It
different.
feeds you,
and
yeah.
then when you're playing in front of a bunch of industry people, you get nothing.
That's exactly
You
right.
don't even know if they like what you're doing or not, because most of the time they won't even clap. You get nothing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
No, and I was when things get awkward for me, I make them more awkward on purpose because I feel like it just kind of lets everyone's guard down. So I would embrace the awkwardness. But I go back now. I actually just sent off a ton of our old videos to have digitized and was going through. That's what brought up this conversation with my kids. But you'll go back, and I said so many inappropriate jokes and different things in between songs just to try and break the ice. And I think my kids say, I think we might have your answer of why things never. And I was like, well, maybe so. But yeah, it's just a truly awkward experience because, as you said, you feed off of that live energy, and now it's your band, especially doing hard rock music, because you're headbanging and slinging sweat everywhere, and you've just got a few suits sitting on the couch, just kind of like,
And you don't know.
And you don't know. Do you hate it? Do you love it? I think I just asked them too.
Do we suck?
Yeah.
Do we suck? Who do we not suck? Give me never know.
Yep.
How different is the LA scene? Let me frame this question a little bit better. So you're out there in the early '90s. Music is changing as far as the rock and pop world.
Quickly.
You got Nirvana coming in. The hair bands are kind of done. There's a whole scene is changing right
So
there.
when I'm in LA at this time, Kurt was already gone, unfortunately. This was 99, 2000.
Okay.
So this is the
later.
latter part.
Okay.
But music was changing very much so, and it's hard to even recall now, but it was really what was there was Limp Bizkit, which was real big at the time, and Korn. So there was like and Linkin Park. So you had your like rock rap stuff over here and like heavier stuff, and then you had in the center was like pop rock, your Matchbox 20s and things like that, and then of course you had Britney and Christina and NSYNC and all these things happening over here on the left, which was more poppy. But that kind of made up the scene at that time, and it was you had to fit in one of those boxes. When as far as the LA scene, I didn't really get to experience the LA scene until after 21. So my Beauty School Dropouts is going pretty good then. We'd signed a big publishing deal with Windswept Publishing at the time. We signed $1 million deal as an unsigned band, which was unheard of. Still might be, I think, because they realized that was dumb. But we appreciated it. Thank you, Windswept.
It's like getting an NIL deal these days.
That's exactly right. And I did what I was told was, with that money, the smart thing, go buy a house. So I did, and then the market, this was like 2007-ish, market drops out of, the real estate market, and ended up losing. I was like, so I'm trying to do everything right, and it's still not right. But again, that was my path. But yeah, I started to experience the scene there probably in like around 2004, 2005. That puts me at like 23, 24. We played Viper Room, Whiskey, A Go-Go. I mean, all of the Key Club, all these different, famous venues. And man, it was unique. I will tell you, and I love Nashville. So I digress just a second. Nashville is my favorite place in the world. I've lived all over this country and traveled everywhere, and I wound up here because I love it. I love the people here. I love the town. But I will say this. Nashville is a very difficult community, especially coming up to play in front of, because almost everybody's in the music business. Everybody's standing there with crossed arms, giving you the judgy look kind of thing. It wasn't that way in LA during, like, everyone, a lot of people were trying to be actors or whatever, and this, that, and or models, whatever, but they would come to the show just to let loose and have a blast. And that was cool, Nashville didn't stay that way for us. Of course, once we built a fall, everything changed, but
it seemed to be like LA had this thing where they kind of almost protected their rock and pop acts, where you could come and you had your VIP rooms and they'd let you come play and indulge and do all your things. But the paparazzi wasn't beating you totally to death. I mean, they had places for you to go hibernate and hang out and have a good time.
Right. Well, when we moved, I moved back there before, I guess, with the band when I was 21. So right at the beginning of all of that, sorry, this timeline might be hard to edit together. We've bounced around a bit, but one of our roommates at the time that we were staying with was dating Haley Duff. I think this is a pretty great story, and for the people that don't know me, at least they'll be able to identify with, some of these other characters. But he was dating Haley Duff, and I remember we had been in LA maybe a week, and there's like 9 of us guys living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I mean, we don't have 2 nickels to rub together. Very bad. And I was sleeping on an air mattress behind the couch. And when you live with 9 guys, somebody's up all the time. And especially 21-year-old guys, then this guy's, got his girlfriend over. And I'm like, God, like, we have to watch The Notebook again. Like, I'm just trying to sleep over here. And then you got my guitar player who's like insistent that we're going to wake up at 6 a.m. and start running because we got to get in good shape. And I'm like, dude, I went to sleep at 4 because of this idiot, and now you're up here trying to wake me up an hour and a half. Anyway, so back to Haley Duff. our roommate says, "Hey, Haley played your music for Hillary Duff, and she wants to take you guys out to dinner, but don't embarrass me." Well, we were embarrassing. We were 21 and
Obnoxious.
obnoxious. I mean, the first thing I do at this dinner was talking to Hillary about wasabi, I think, and she was like, "It's hot. Like, have you tried that?" I was like, "Dude, I would snort that." And she goes, "Do it," and I did. I snorted wasabi. I spent 25 minutes in the bathroom afterward, but and our roommate's like, "Dude, the one thing I asked," but she loved us, and she invited us over to the house. I remember we were out in the backyard jumping on Hillary Duff's trampoline, and we were having, they're odd stories, man, and they get even more odd. But she had like lemon trees back there in California. And we were just like chunking, like the band was chunking lemons at each other. But then you just notice you brought up paparazzi. Paparazzi's like sneaking over the fence, like taking shots. And Hillary's mad. And we're like, "This is cool, man." Like, we're having lemon fights in Hillary Duff's backyard. And people are going to want to say, "Well, who's these band of misfits she's hanging out with?" But social media wasn't like it is today, so never really worked out. We were just idiots.
I think you can get a hall pass when you're young, but if you were 45 doing that, it might be a problem.
It would be weird.
Yeah,
it would be weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a different time in music, different time in life, different, just.
Now, during that period of time, because I know Jimmy Bowen had come from L.A. and brought a lot of music technology with him, because James Stroud and I have talked about it many times. When Jimmy Bowen came in, even before Garth hit Nashville, Bowen brought the philosophy. He might have 6 studios going on each time, and he had hand selected every engineer in every room, so everybody was production wise doing the exact same things, the same microphones, the same outboard gear, the same consoles. So he would, if he had a act here and here and here and here, he would pop in just to oversee what was going on and be able to evaluate everything. He had a machine.
Oh yeah.
So that was very new to Nashville. James Stroud did it on somewhat of a different level, but he was doing multiple acts at one time. How was the LA recording scene out there? It's much more spread out than what it is in Nashville. People don't realize, I think Nashville has the most efficient recording system in the entire world. And you're a 5-minute phone call away from any type of gear, guitar player, background vocalist, string section. Anything you need can be there really freaking quick. LA's a whole different deal, but I've never recorded out there, so I'm asking because I don't know. Give me an insight into how things were out there.
I honestly can't give you much of an insight because there was very little recording that I actually did in LA.
Well, you were jumping on trampolines all the time.
I was, and I was busy throwing lemons. But no, I think even when I was in LA, I would hop back on a flight and come record in Nashville, just because, like you said, it's just simpler and better. Sorry, LA guys, but it just is.
It's a different mentality. I go back and forth with it too, because we all have friends in the pop rock world and everything, and the way that they approach studio time, it's like I've got friends that'll come in and they might rent Ocean Way for 3 or 4 months at a time,
right?
And they don't write the first song until they get in the studio, and they get in there and they just go as they go. Our philosophy in Nashville is you do all your pre-production, man. You write all your
and
stuff,
you show up
find
ready to
all
go.
your signs. You come in loaded.
Yep.
You come in and you can go. I mean, I usually come in 15, 20 songs, and the cream rises to the top. One didn't work, you bump on to the next one. But you go through a system. It's very, very efficient.
For sure.
It's a whole different world the way. But there's also something that I wonder sometimes. The way that we record, if you don't miss something along the way, if it gets too sterile, if everything starts to sound the same, and a part of me wished that I had the resources to go take the time to make a record a little bit more like rock acts do. Maybe not the writing in the studio part of it, but the structural arrangements and the orchestration of it, like Barracuda by Heart. How great is the arrangement of that record?
So amazing.
We don't do anything like that in Nashville.
I think that you're right, and I think that it's a yin and yang, if you will. So yes, you without doubt miss things. Like whenever you have the ability to be creative in the studio, I think the longer you have, obviously the better, because you know how it is. You do something one day and you love it, and the next day you're like, that could be better, or this could be this. And having that ability to go in and track and make those decisions and change it up along the way is awesome. there is also, that I found anyway, it's also super cool to go in with that high pressure on, and sometimes you come up with amazing things on the spot because like you are so hyper focused and know that you have to be, and if not, especially in a band situation, you're letting everybody else down. Or we're just jerks and just want to hate on the drummer because it's a Tuesday and it seems fun, and if he takes 8 tries to get to get his drum parts down, we're just going to let him have it. So he's hyper focused. Everybody's hyper focused because we'll all be that band mentality. You're coming after each other. You know what I mean?
And I've never tracked like that. I think I did a Christmas album with a handful, but not my full band ever at all, other than demos. But then I hear stories about and I won't mention names, but really prominent heavy metal bands from the 80s and stuff that maybe the guitar player wasn't so great. He wasn't great. He could regurgitate it once he learned how to play it, but he couldn't come up with it on the fly. So you have a ghost player that would come in and actually walk him through stuff, maybe not actually play, but guide him about progressions and different things to do.
Absolutely.
That I don't know if that happens in Nashville.
No, if it does, it's very rare, and they got deep pockets, right?
Well, that takes a lot of money to record like that.
Yes.
That's a whole different thing.
But you absolutely should. You absolutely should. Sorry, guys. You absolutely should track with your band at one point in time.
Or maybe 3 or 4 of them.
Or maybe 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, Junior. So you get to.
Junior and Scott, definitely.
I've been holding my skills. I'm good. I got to.
No, it's. I will tell you, you might not all make it out. You know, it's kind of like Survivor. You know, like you're gonna have to form alliances.
You can't mute it if it's not there.
That's true. That's true. No, but I will tell you, my band, we were brothers. I mean, we were, and like literal brothers. We all loved each other. But one thing, you go against someone's creative wishes in the studio, and one thing creates a ripple effect, and then you're trying to form those alliances with the bass player and the drummer quick before the guitar player gets to them. And I mean, there's a lot of that going on, and that kind of generates more creativity as well, because now, okay, you know what? Screw it. Let's just screw both of those ideas, and I'm going to come up with a superior idea to that, which will encompass everything. And that is, in my opinion, when you have bands that take over scenes like Nirvana or, the Beatles, I think that infighting is part of all of that. I think that you can feel it. I think you can feel it in the record.
Feel that push and pull.
Yeah, you feel the tensions.
Eagles
and
were like that. The Eagles.
Absolutely, yes.
In the country vein.
Without a doubt. I mean, Beach Boys, I've heard a lot of stories too, but I think when you put a lot of creative people in one room and they're all fighting to be heard even, you get some pretty interesting results.
Yeah, but it can also blow up in your face too.
It can
go both ways.
Absolutely blow up in your face.
So we've had a chance to go to a couple of rock concerts, and you've educated me a little bit more. I've broadened my musical perspective a lot over the years. We went and saw Disturbed and Falling in Reverse, and I wasn't familiar with Falling in
You were
Reverse.
not.
So you've educated me on some of these things. It's pretty fascinating watching things on that level be put together.
Oh, it's so much fun. And Ronnie is the lead singer of Falling in Reverse, and Ronnie's pretty close to my age. So, and he kind of had a similar trajectory. Goodness, I'm hitting a microphone. We're going to try this again. He kind of had a similar trajectory of, starting with poppier stuff to punkier and then just going heavy. And now, I mean, he's doing some of the heaviest stuff.
Well, from looking at some of their early stuff, they did rap stuff, they did pop stuff, they did hardcore metal. I mean, they were very diverse in their whole body of work. I mean, it's pretty fascinating.
It really is. And Ronnie, I know he was incarcerated for a little while. Y'all can look that up, but it's also an interesting story. But I think whenever he went to jail, I think he became hyper-focused, because when he came out, I think it was 2018 or 19, there was definitely a shift. Their music you could tell it was hyper-focused, at least in my opinion. And not meaning that it was of one genre, because it definitely was not that. Like, when I listen to their music, I hear, like, some of the heaviest music you've ever heard. I hear pop elements, punk elements, there's rap elements, he's got a new song out, I think he did with Jelly Roll, that's obviously got more country elements. Yeah, it's not my favorite one of theirs, but it's a good song.
Who's your favorite current band out there right now
boy.
in any genre?
So my favorite band currently right now in that genre would be Bring Me the Horizon, just based on their longevity and their track record of. I can listen to. They're one of the few artists that I can listen to their record from front to back without really wanting to skip anything. And they reinvent themselves every new record, but still maintain who they are, and that's really hard to do. So it keeps me interested, and yeah, they're just a lot of fun. So I would say Bring Me the Horizon.
Cool. What about country?
There's a guy named Tracy Lawrence. No, I mean, I have to say, I don't listen to country music that much anymore.
Unless we're drinking beer at the pool.
Yeah, there you go. You gave me your latest. Was it an EP?
EP, yeah.
Right before Thanksgiving last year. I wasn't supposed to have it. Sorry, management, but I kept it under lock and key. And like, I truly loved it. Like, you're my friend. I would tell you if I didn't like it. But some of the best stuff you've done, I think.
Well, there is one problem. There's a song called Gulf of Mexico that I've got to do a lyric change on.
You know, I didn't even think about that.
It's got to be Gulf America.
That is,
we got to do Gulf America was full of whiskey. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Just telling you.
So what is easier? Is it easier to retrack that song or send the song to...
I'm just going to do it live.
Send the song to 47 and just be like, dude, we got a problem. You know, like, what do you think, you know?
I just trying to figure out how to get the of in there. Gulf of America.
No, it's Gulf. America. No, but don't you take out the A.
Yeah, take out the A.
It's Gulf of America.
Gulf America.
Gulf America.
Which I think that was
Gulf America.
I know there's a lot of backlash about that, and we'll steer clear of politics, but I think if he would have named it Gulf of America with just, you know, the I don't think anyone would have had a problem with it, honestly. You know, I think everyone could get behind that. But you know, I say that, but who knows?
How different is the music world these days?
Oh boy,
recording wise. I'll give you, for instance, there was a song that I recorded called "Struggle," a few records back, and I remember when we were tracking it. We did a full traditional stock ending on it. It was real cool, no big deal. And I came home that night and it was playing in my head, and I this whole new structure came out in my brain.
Yep.
And we were able to go back and completely rebuild the end of that song with Pro Tools and add a solo section in and completely restructure the entire playoff of everything. And it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And you can't even tell.
Wow.
That was all done on computers.
Yeah.
You know, but you could never have done what we did with the end of that song 20 years ago.
It was absolutely on ADAT,
or even when you were running reel. I mean, when you were splice tape. Did you ever splice tape?
I never had to splice. I got to load the machine and then unload it. But yeah, as far as
that's a lost art, man.
I
saw people do it. The first couple of records. Sticks and Stones would cut on a 24 track analog.
Yep.
On a Atari, isn't that what they're called? And so with those guys that knew how to splice, there's an art form to that stuff, man, that you just don't see anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's guys, I think our brother said once before, but it's called like a window edit. So if you got 24 tracks, you know, they're going from left to right.
Sure.
So if one of the kick drums was just a little bit out, you could very, very carefully go in there, and within that one little track, they call it a window edit because you're just literally slicing out a little window pane.
Like cutting it out of the tape.
Yeah, of the tape, but you're not slicing the entire tape. You're cutting a little window out.
Just
scrubbing back and forth, and then grease pen.
Your story reminded me. So we kind of came in at the beginning of when technology really started to change.
So in the late
recording.
90s, I mean, they were doing 48 digs.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on digital machines. Maybe Pro Tools weren't as prominent in Tennessee.
I had a Mackie D8B is what I had. It was a 32 track Mackie digital 8 bus, and that kind of integrated almost like the feel of analog technology, but it also connected to a couple of monitors where you could see the tracks and start to manipulate the tracks in different ways. And one of the ways that we started sampling was, you know, if you listen, anybody that listens to rock music, the Deftones have like some of the best unique snare tones, and I always loved them. And you just can't recreate them because we have a shoestring budget, and they had the budget that they had. So I would literally take in, I would like upload the CD and just literally, I would find a spot where it was a blank snare and just steal the snare, and I would sample it because I didn't know what I was doing. I just bought all this equipment and figured it out. But I would go in and on every snare hit, then I would drop that snare and just kind of blend it in with the actual snare. And I would do that, hundreds and hundreds of times on one song. And that's how I did it. And it ended up sounding great. Everyone's like, how'd you get that snare tone? I'm like, I really don't even know. I just threw a bunch of stuff on there and made a lot of copy and paste.
And nowadays, everything is in the box. Man.
Oh, dude. And yeah, you can literally hook something up to some, preset that it's not fair. And these kids, like, if I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just going to say it. If I was 21 years old, kids listen to this and had all of these products at my disposal, it would have been unstoppable. Like, just
it'd been like a Boston record,
dude. Exactly
73 tracks.
Yes,
me.
and I'm hitting like a high G above high C, like just screaming all day. But no, it's so easy, and these kids can promote themselves. I mean, my daughter is. She's been a competitive dancer her whole life. So is my son, and my daughter's got like 1 million followers now on TikTok, and like all these companies are sending her things and giving her money, and hey, make 3 or 4 posts. My son, these company, and it's like, man, we didn't have any of that.
No,
and that would have helped it. Like, what really stunk for us was, not trying to say, oh, poor pitiful me, but we had to go and we had to work and we had to survive and then do all of this stuff on top of that, and then try and find a little life somewhere too. But, if we could have had something where we could have made money just being ourselves on the internet, wow, that's fantastic. But no, we didn't have that.
Yeah, it's all changed so much now, and I remember hearing stories about guys going out and taking a drumstick and beating on every limb in the parking lot and hitting every hubcap looking
Right.
for a sound. Give me
Yep.
any kind of sound that just sounds different than anything I've ever heard.
Right.
I mean, and nowadays it's like
And then
just all-
Metallica on Saint Anger did it
With the snares
poorly.
off, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, they hit the snare with the snares off. Yeah.
Metallica and Skinner, it's my 2 favorite bands, but it pains me to say that I cannot stand that. I love Saint Anger, but the
Yep.
damn snare sound. on it,
Yeah.
it sounds like you're hitting a garbage can.
At least they tried, but I think I mean, maybe that happened organically, or maybe that was that Bob Rock that did that record? I don't even know.
Maybe, and then the lack of solos on it. But the songs were killer, dude. I mean, they really were.
Do you think this generation is growing up not really hearing the full spectrum of how good a record can be?
Oh, without question.
Because I just don't see people aren't as passionate about music
They're not.
as what we were when we were kids, because you had to anticipate and wait. Now everything's just right there. It's too easy. It's too accessible. It's
Yeah,
just-
I'm super worried about not only where we are today, but where we will be in the future. It's always kind of been my plan. I got out of music. We never kind of got to that, but I got out of music because I had 2 young kids, and just not ashamed to say, like, at some point, it's like, you got to come back home and help mama. I can't stay out on the road, living all these crazy LA times and leave my wife here with the kids. I need and money. It takes money to raise kids. So I did that. We ended up building a couple of successful businesses, and now I'm your neighbor, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But my plan's always kind of been, in some facility to get back into the music business once my kids are grown. My kids are 20 and 18 now, so I'm kind of there at that put up or shut up.
Well, we talked about it a little bit about you wanting to get back into production and things, and looking for a pathway. Everybody. In freaking
I do
town.
know a lot of people. The cool thing about it this time would be there's not that pressure monetarily, whereas there was before. Well, hey, I'm a dad. I got kids to feed and a wife to take care of. So it'd be neat now to just do it for the passion. But that brings me now to your question of the fear. Creativity is lost so often on the masses, and it's not their fault. It's just the way that the machine's been built. It's hard to keep people's attention for more than a verse and a chorus of a song, much less an entire album of songs. Like you have to find a way to hook them, and I think the only way that you can hook the today's audience is live. I think as an artist, like you once you put a little hook in them, then obviously your social media and stuff like that's going to help pull them in and potentially pull other people to even go see you live. But I think they kind of have to have a vested interest in you to even go, I want to dedicate an hour of my life with all of this content, that from anything to music to sports or whatever that they love, all of this content that's put out every second of every day. And that's going to present challenges along with AI, obviously.
Well, and there's so many different things jockeying for your attention. I mean, and your eye attention, your ear attention, the billboards, the commercial spots, everything that's going on. It's like you drive into town on a regular basis and you're just bombarded with all this stuff. It's like, oh, that looks pretty interesting. Maybe I'll go there. By the time you get downtown and go to your job and you drive back that evening, you forgot all about that.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't retain it all. It's too much.
It's too
so
much.
Being able to grab the attention, they say, how many impressions do they need of you on a regular basis for them to retain who you are? It's some ridiculous
I think
number.
Lindsey would know.
Lindsey, how many people? She does not know.
She doesn't know.
But I'm telling you, you have to.
Make sure she's not your lifeline on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
She could have totally made up a number and we'd have went with it.
Yeah, right. I would have believed her. If she would have said 11, I would have been like, it's 11.
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay, I want to shift gears.
Okay.
So let's talk about, because I know you're way deep into sports. You love the books. And you're into.
That's a nice way of him saying you're a degenerate gambler. I gamble on like women's European basketball at like 3 a.m.
I've been trying to get into sports betting.
Dude,
so it's good to.
I got you, bro.
Good connection here.
He knows a guy.
I got a guy.
He got a guy. How do you feel about the NIL? How do you think that in the next 5 to 10 years, what's it going to be like, and is it going to get out of control?
I mean,
is it out of control already?
I think it's out of control already, but I'm a fan of change. Like I think change is inevitable. I think that we have to embrace it and figure it out. So yes.
Well, it's the Wild West right now. It needs to be regulated.
No, and I think there are people, like I'm sure you've been in your life, and I know I have been, we've been the reason for rules to be created.
My point being.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they will get it figured out over time.
The whole concept. I know how
weird.
I was at 23 years old when I didn't have two nickels to rub together, and all of a sudden I got money and people giving me vehicles, and giving me clothes, and all this stuff. It's crazy. A 19-year-old kid does not need $1 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, especially if they didn't come from a family where they don't know how to manage that, because nothing good's going to come out of that. You might think it will, but all of a sudden you're going to be making it rain.
Right.
Or you're going to be up in the club. And all of a sudden bad things are going to happen. And then you're going to lose all of it, and it's going to destroy kids' lives.
No,
I worry about that.
It is worrisome, and you'd like to think with a lot of these kids, that don't. The world's cruel, man. I tell my kids this all the time, but
they don't. The world don't owe you nothing.
No, if you don't save it, it's gone. And I hope that these agents and these managers are really, I think, and I'm not going to ask Lindsey of the exact number. I think it's 3 years. But
she's not a person to call.
But I think that most professional athletes are broke. There's a large percentage after 3 years of leaving the league. And that's really sad. But I think a lot of people look from the outside and think, man, so-and-so is making $20 million a year, but there's a lot of mouths to feed underneath that too. Number one being the U.S. government.
There's a lot of fingers in the pile. There's 15% here, there's 20% here,
exactly.
There's 10% here, and the government's getting a half off the top.
And I'm not asking you to feel sorry for these millionaire athletes, but it's not near as much money as you think. By the time, government takes 50% off the top for these big boys, and then some state governments take, another piece of income tax, and then you've got your agent, your manager, your attorneys, like all these different people that by the time it's all said and done, you might be pulling in 30%, 28%, of after tax.
But you've got a shelf life there too. Even if you're making $2 or $3 million in college or whatever, and you ain't going to hold on to that because you're going to blow through all that.
I know I would have.
And then you, at best for a professional athlete, maybe 10, 15 years, depending on your skill position, where you're at.
Oh, that's a long career.
And you're never going to be able to make that kind of money again. I mean, how many people, not very many can parlay
No.
it into what a Michael Strahan has done. Not
Right.
or you know,
Or Brady or whoever, yeah.
or parlaying it into commentary or whatever. Some guys, I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, it's a tough transition to go out of that if you hadn't taken care of your money and you hadn't been smart along the way. And they don't teach these kids.
Well, what gets
enough.
people is the lifestyle.
And it's the same in the music industry too.
That's
it's
exactly
a very similar
right.
thing.
You get accustomed to a certain lifestyle and you've built a home for your family, and then all of a sudden your options are, well, I either have to change my lifestyle or sell my home, right? Because like that, I can't, spend $40,000 a month anymore because I don't have anything coming in, or I might have $3,000 a month coming in now instead of whatever the case, 500,000 or 600, whatever they were making a year. But yeah, it's super interesting. I know they'll get it figured out because there's too much money involved for them not to get it figured out.
I just wish it, maybe put it in escrow for these kids.
That would be
put
awesome.
it in an investment portfolio so they don't have access to all the
Right.
cash. There needs to be some curbs put on the bowling lane.
I think that the NCAA could probably get away with doing something like that up until that player is 21. Anything above and after that, I mean, it's just like, I mean, dude, here's the opportunities that you have, and maybe there could even be government programs like that would incentivize saving or things like that. I don't know, but surely there's things that could be done.
What would have to happen to make people wake up and see the dangers the dangerous path that we're on right here? And you got guys like Reggie Bush. They took his Heisman away from him for a lot less than what these
Exactly.
kids are getting. So it's like,
well, I think that's the key there. So there were so many silly things that took so many monumental things away from people that were deserving of them. That maybe they made a small mistake, or a mistake that 99.9% of us would have made at 19 years old. Like, oh, a car? Yeah, I need a car. I'll take a car. And then they get things stripped from them. That's kind of unfair, I believe.
I think it is.
I understand. We got to keep the playing field even. So it's got to be floodgates open or closed. But I think the only way that you'll see real dramatic change is if it starts to affect the bottom line, and I think that's when it rises up to the shield. And once if the NFL were starting to lose money, or prospects decide they're going to stay in college even like they are now even longer, and X, Y, and Z starts to happen. Once that bottom line's affected, that's when you'll see change, and that'll go from either way, I think, in college or pro. Otherwise, as long as everything's okay and that money's still coming in, I don't think we'll really see any change.
Okay, before we wrap up, I know you got to get back to work.
I do. I got to get back to my normal. I've had a stroll down memory lane now.
You brought a whole folder full of pictures and stuff in, but what I want you to find some stuff when you were out in L.A. with the long hair and the earrings and all the stuff. I want people to see the Rockstar Jimmy. That's what I want to see, and I'll just put them on the end, and we'll just let people scroll through them. I
will send some videos and some pictures, and I didn't always look like a used car salesman or whatever, or maybe an attorney. I don't know what I look like now, but
if you would have walked into a bank looking like that, would they have given you a loan back in the day?
So we got we got profiled all the time, and that was one thing. Like, I was in rock and roll. Mom, you'll like to hear this, but I never got involved with drugs, tattoos, any of that stuff. I did, yeah, I just didn't, and I was pretty proud of that. But I did look like I was involved in all of those things, and worse. And we would be profiled all the time and pulled over. Because you'd have my drummer had a 94 Monte Carlo, loaded with drums, and they just see these guys that look like crack addicts, driving down the road, and hey, we're gonna go ahead and do a stop and search. We're gonna go ahead and
do a cavity search on these boys.
Go ahead. We're gonna put you in cuffs.
I'm sure there's something up there.
It happened a lot. So profiling is real. It definitely happened to me on numerous occasions. But that doesn't happen now. Now, if I get pulled over, my wife will get a ticket. I won't. Every time. I hope the MJPD is not listening. So they're like, I'm going to get this guy next time.
We're model citizens here.
We are model citizens.
We are model citizens.
I've got a lead foot, so that's
all do. But I don't like going out after 10 o'clock at night.
That's true.
You don't see me straying out the gates very much anymore.
That's very true. The only thing I want to first say, I've had a blast doing this. I just regret talking about myself so much because
that's why you're here.
Yeah, I guess so. I really thought I think that maybe we can do this another time, which will be more. I think that your listeners will find that my stories about personal Tracy a lot more interesting
We're not here to
than,
talk
than
about
Jimmy.
me. Junior, ask him a good question. Come on.
You know, I really would like the world to hear the pants story on the cruise. Is that acceptable?
Oh,
And
yeah,
if
that's
not,
acceptable.
We can edit
Mom,
it out.
mother-in-law, I'm super, super, super sorry.
It's one of my favorite Jimmy Chandler stories.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, I've since quit drinking, so there we go. That's good. But we went on a cruise. We like to go on cruises. I've been on some cruises
We
with
like
Tracy.
cruises,
We've had
yeah,
some good times.
yeah.
Slow your roll.
Yeah, slow your roll. Yeah.
Well,
I'm a bad influence, just so you know.
Yes,
we
you
went
are.
on a
I've been up
cruise
there.
a few years ago. It was my wife and the kids and I, and the kids had their own room right beside us, and my wife and I had our own room. And we go on the boat. We were like the last to board, and I had one of those offers. I had the free cruises because I like to gamble in the casino. And then they said, hey, you got free drinks in the casino. I said, well, this is great. I like the casino and I get free drinks. So I go to the casino and I have a lot of free drinks. And this was right. I mean, I'd been to my room just to make sure my bags were there and then went out and that was it. Now I take a picture of said room number every time, what floor I'm on, like when I'm at the airport, I'm like taking a video of so I can get back to my car, because when you get old in life, you start screwing stuff up and forgetting things. So I'm in the casino, have lots of drinks. My wife leaves because I'm getting grumpy, as I do when I gamble sometimes. It's like midnight. She was like, well, if you're not going to have fun, I'm going back to the room. I was like, well, fine then, whatever. She goes back to the room. And she was being kind. And at about 2:00, I come back down to the room, and I go to sleep and or pass out. And the next thing I know, I wake up, and I'm in my underwear in the hallway of the cruise ship. Okay? I'm not lying. That is a terrifying, terrifying feeling. I can't recall where our room is at all. So I'm standing in my underwear about 4:30 in the morning on the cruise ship, and I'm like in a corner. And so you start thinking of options, right? Let's sober up real quickly. Okay, I think my best option here is to go talk to like the housekeeping staff.
They're asleep.
And I didn't see anyone. But I was like, that could be super embarrassing. Like if I walk in and there's 80 people doing laundry and they all just stop and start laughing at me.
You want drawers washed?
Right. But also when you're on a cruise ship, the majority of people are from other countries, and especially the housekeeping staff, they might not be able to even speak English. You just don't know. So I was like, terrible decision. So I went with, I'm just going to knock on the door that I'm closest to, because surely that's got to be the one. It wasn't the one. It was a middle-aged guy that opened the door, and there's just a guy in his underwear. I was like, dude, it's a long story. I'm sorry. Go back to bed. And he looked at me strangely and closed the door. Some saint of a human had put like "Happy Birthday, Carl" on the door. And I remembered, it was somewhere in the recesses of my mind, walking past that and it being on my right. And then I put it together and I was like, and then we're on the corner up here. So I go and I knock on that door, knock on it again. I hear my wife. I'm like, yes, it's the right one. And then she goes, what are you doing? She didn't even know that I had
Did you think you were going to the bathroom? Is that how you went
that
about
is,
that?
yes. So thank you. I believe what happened was this. I woke up, kind of walked to the bathroom, and then instead of being in a different place, just went out the door, like thinking I'm back at home or something. Like it was like kind of set up that way where I would have gone back to bed. And instead I just wound up in the hallway rather than going back to bed. But the greatest part of the story is my wife opens the door and says, why are you in your underwear? What are you doing? She didn't know that I had come back after the casino. She thought that I was just at the casino at midnight. She leaves me. I'm coming back 4 hours later with no clothes. And
You lost your ass.
I totally lost everything.
The only thing that would make this story better is if you had upside down pineapples on your underwear.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, but she truly, she had to come in and do the investigative work, because I just came in and went right back to bed. I was embarrassed, sad, whatever. she did the investigative work and was like, okay, these are the clothes that he was wearing. They were in here. So he was here before he went out there. But it's tragic. And that's when you're like, okay, like I'm not going to do that again. And haven't yet. So.
Where are your pants, Jimmy? I don't know. Where are my pants?
I don't know if Scott, can you beat that, or do we need to just say bye?
I think that was a good place to stop.
I think it's good. Jimmy's got to go to work. Jimmy Chandler, everybody.
Hey, to all the people. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you.
Glad to have you, my friend. It was a good time. We will do this again.
We will.
Next time, we might even have a couple of cocktails or something.
I like it.